Have you ever tried to play those really cool chord embellishments that Jimi Hendrix played? Hey, I'm Lee from Play Guitar Academy. I help frustrated guitar players get back to getting better at the guitar. And this week I have a whole series on Jimi Hendrix and his rhythm, his chord playing. In fact, this first video is all about his soul guitar double stops, some really fun stuff. Before we get started though, could you take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell? That way we can stay connected. Let's go ahead and get started with the video right now. Soul guitar double stops. You know what I'm talking about. Let me see here. Those little embellishments that he would do over these, mostly the major pentatonic scale. Let's start with the major pentatonic. That's where it really, to me, they shine. And usually, if you've watched me at any time, we always start with pattern 1. So this is part of the 1-4, 1-3, 1-3, 1-3, 1-4, 1-4 box that almost all guitar players know. You learn this very early on. It's the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic, pattern 1, the way I call it. They both share the same pattern, so they both have the same name. They're just used different ways. Jimmy played in the Chitlin circuit for many years before he became the Jimi Hendrix. He backed up a lot of early rock and roll and R&B and soul artists, and picked up in fact, a lot of his stage stuff that he did, he got from them. If you look in the key of E, major pentatonic, which sits between the 9th and the 12th fret, it has a very geometric shape. The first finger could actually bar the entire 9th fret in that position. And if you take the three kind of in the middle, the D string, the G string, and the B string, you get at that fret, you get a B, an E, and a G sharp, which is an E major triad. Your chord is right there. And if you put your first finger, or your pinky, up at the 12th fret, you can put another E there. Or even put your third finger at the 11th fret on the A string. You have a full 6-string E major chord right there that shares the same area with your major pentatonic scale. So what a lot of people who do this style, Jimmy and a lot of other people do, is they use their first finger almost like a capo, like a bar chord. You've got your E major chord covered with one finger. That gives you 3 other fingers to hit some of the other notes of the major pentatonic scale, embellishing that chord. And a lot of these notes that he would play would be 2 notes together. Small little pieces of chords, not the whole big chord. You didn't really ever see him playing really heavy things. And a lot of that has to do with the tone he was using. We're going to get into that a little bit as well. Let's see here. He took advantage of the shapes. He added hammer-ons and pull-offs, mostly with the 3rd finger. And then releasing kind of back to the capoed first finger. It's a very, very soul music kind of thing. You've all heard this. That sounds in a lot of different songs. Even I even think of Paul McCartney songs that you have this kind of double stop that comes off of pattern 1 on the high E and B string, going up 2 frets and then back. Adding some interest, filling in time, where if you were playing this looking at a chord sheet, if you just had E for 4 bars, you wouldn't just play that there. You would want to add a little interest to them. And so he would use adding to the, going from one of the cool ones that I like. This shows up in a bunch of songs, and this is at the 9th fret. If you bar the 9th fret on the A and the D string, and then let the 9th fret on the D string ring, but on the A string, hammer onto the 11th fret. It pulls you right into an E major chord. It starts with the tension and then resolves. Another part of the double stops that work there come more from the full major scale. If you go to your G and B string and bar at the 9th fret, add your second finger and on the 10th fret of the B string, and then your third finger on the 11th fret of the G string in front of that, and then let it go. You add a little bit of a passing chord sound, which you could then slide up 2 frets to get into another E major part of a chord, small chunk of a chord. You see what I'm doing there? I'm taking advantage of the shape of the major pentatonic scale with the first finger. Now, this is not the only pattern that you can use that on. We're going to go through some. We'll go through a good bit of the patterns. So this is pattern 1. Let's go back. Let's go to pattern 5. So on pattern 5, which lives in the key of E between the 6th fret and the 9th fret, there's a couple of places where that works really nicely, and it's on the low string. You have 2 notes on the E and the A string that are right next to each other, so you can bar them. And if you play both of the ones at the 7th fret together, that's the root of E and the 5th. You can hammer on your 3rd finger. You can do the exact same thing on the high E and B string. You just have to, you don't have the luxury of having your root note on those 2. To resolve, you'd have to go to the 9th fret on the G string. So we've got pattern 1, pattern 5. Really nice stuff. So let's go to pattern 4 here. So you don't have the luxury like you do in pattern 1 of having your first finger all the way across for pattern 4, but a good bit of it is. I like the middle strings, the D string and the G string barred at the 4th fret, and hammering on your 3rd finger to the 6th fret, and then resolving to your root note on the 7th fret of the A string. This is in the C, if you were doing cage, the C pattern. So we've got 1, we've got 5, 4, 3. Now, the pattern 3 in the pentatonic has those, if you do it the way you would see on paper, the 2 4 2 4 2 4. It has 3 notes on the low E, A, and D string, all in a row, which is perfect for this hammer-on pull-off barring. and you've got your root note at the 2nd fret of the D string. Okay, so I'm going back and forth between all those patterns. We did 1, 5, 4, 3. Let's go up to 2 here. So there's our pattern 2 in the major. The easy one is barring at the in the key of E, barring at the 12th fret on the high E and the B string, and hammering on with your 3rd finger to the 14th fret on the B, and then letting go. Hammer on and pull off. So there's a lot of ways you can take advantage of this style of playing, Jimi Hendrix, the soul double stop style of playing, in every single pattern of the major pentatonic scale. Okay, so I'm gonna get back to the soul double stops and some of the songs he uses those in. Little Wing is a really neat song because of the relationship between the major and the relative minor, and he uses these in both places. So when he's playing over a minor chord, he will use the same idea, but over a minor sound. So say we were in the key of A, and there's an A minor playing. How could we use the soul double stops over a minor? Well, we just take the same idea. Where's pattern 1? Pattern 1 in A minor, it's at the 5th fret. And we've got our roots at the 5th fret on the E strings and the 7th fret on the D string. Same idea, just resolving to a different place in the scale, to where the A is this time. You hear this in a lot of blues too. They'll do double stops. So I'm plucking the high E string and then picking different notes throughout the pentatonic scale. And you hear this style playing all through. So let's try this in a different key. Let's try this in E. Hammering on with the 3rd finger and going back to the 1st finger where that's kind of barring across where that. So what if we were to go from the minor pentatonic to the major? Well, in the key of, if I'm playing an E let's see, E major. Okay, let's do E major. The relative minor of E major is C sharp minor. I'm playing the same notes. I'm hammering on the same idea of using that 1st finger and hammering on the 3rd finger and letting go. The only difference is I'm resolving to either 12 or 9. 12 being the E major, 9 being the C sharp minor. And they take on a different character depending on the sound, that's the chord that you're playing over at the time. So that was Little Wing. It uses both of those ideas. Like I said, I'm not going to play the song. When Cries Mary, Cry Mary also uses that same idea with hammer-ons. And in that song, there's a chord sequence that slides up. And each time the chord slides up, the hammer-on up to the third. This sound that we talked about before, where we played that on the A and the D string, going from a barred ninth fret to adding the third finger on the A string on the 11th fret. And Wind Cries Mary, that slides up as the chords go up. And Crosstown Traffic also uses that. Also, Axis Bold as Love also uses this idea as well. And so that's the idea. That hopefully that gets you kind of started with these kind of Hendrixy, double stop soul music. They're really interesting if you've got a song that has a lot of different chords that last for a long time. These can almost like a suspended. A lot of you guys have learned suspended chords from me and how they're great for filling time. Well, this is also a great idea as well. So if you've got an E chord for 4 bars, throw some of this in there, embellish a little bit, fill up some of the spaces. It would be, it's always fun to do. I try to do it in every song that it's appropriate. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Just for making it all the way to the end of this video, I've got a very cool gift for you. It's my free blues soloing course. It's called Get Your Blues Solos Under Control. This gives you the right foundations to move your lead guitar playing forward fast. It's at freeblueslesson.com, but you can also find that in the description below. Thanks again for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you on the next video.